People that are grafting to make money, it's hard for them to be in gratitude because they think that they deserve the wealth because they pushed hard to get it. So that's the first thing. It's just their perception. Don't just think I'm making money through effort, so thus I should get it, because that's a negative frequency. So if we can shift them to say, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to receive such money that allows me to have freedom, just that mindset shift puts them into a higher frequency, then it's easier for them to actually put in more wealth because one, people want to be around them more, and two, they are more open in their posture and their energy, which is a receptive frequency.
I'm Michael A. Blunt, Executive Mindset Coach, and welcome to Wealthy Minded, the podcast for elite men who are looking for success beyond the money. Welcome to another episode of Wealthy Minded, a podcast for successful men who have reached financial heights, who are looking to reach their full human potential past the money. Today, we have my very own coach, Coach Warren Williams. And I wanted to introduce you guys to my coach as the first guest on my podcast. So I'm really excited to have him on this podcast today. And I wanted to let you know a little bit about him before we jump into the interview. So Coach Warren Williams is an alchemist, healer, mentor, and transformational guide that has been at the forefront of holistic transformation, guiding business leaders, high-level coaches, and change makers to unlock their fullest potential. Warren's expertise lies in helping individuals identify blind spots, break through internal barriers, and embody a higher state of awareness. So everybody, welcome Coach Warren. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to share with listeners how we met and what I've learned from you along the way. And my journey with you, Coach, was first going on a man's retreat in December. And this is where I met a gentleman that you coach named Victor. And Victor was one of the most masterful, disciplined people that I've ever met in my life. He just showed a level of embodiment, a level of mindset, and a level of personal development that I really was inspired by. And so I went to Victor afterwards, after the men's retreat, and I asked Victor, I said, man, where did you learn what you learned? Because Victor taught us a lot about breath work. He taught us a lot about mindset mastery. He taught us a lot about embodiment practices and how to move your body this way and twerk your body that way. And, it was very intense, during those 7 days. And Victor was one of our guides. He was one of our teachers. And he gave me your information. And he said that, listen, this is the best of the best in the world. And you need to be in contact with Coach Warren because he can really take you to your next level. And honestly, that is the reason why immediately you didn't even have to really, say anything. I just got on the call and I said, okay, I'm in. I wanted to work with you because I really wanted to expand my wealth prominence. And I really wanted to get to my next level beyond the money. I really wanted to stretch myself and say, okay, what more is there? And one of the things that you taught me was how to expand my energy, how to expand my frequency, and how to really get into a reality where I can hold the vision, where I can hold the physical reality that I was calling forth. And I didn't necessarily know how to do that before, even though I've been a coach for years, even though I've been a mentor for many more years. You've really taught me, embodiment. You really taught me how to bring in more light into my body and how to look past financial success into more of a holistic mindset. So Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself and how that landed with you.
Well, the first thing I want to kind of do is thank you for the opportunity to be your first guest on this program. It was podcast. It's amazing. To be the first, that's cool. And also, I really enjoyed just hearing you narrate, some of the experience we've had together. Because obviously we're building this really cool relationship as well. You being a coach, it's an honor to be able to coach someone who's a coach and a high level coach. So I wanted to kind of put that out there first. And now to, your question, like with regards to my background, how I got into this field is an interesting one. People often laugh when I say this, but I actually got into spirituality and the other parts of the growth through comics, when I was like 7 years old. Yeah, when I was like 7 years old, I was massively into comics. And what attracted me to comics was just seeing these superpowered beings that could do things that normal humans couldn't do. And I really related to that. This understanding that we could be more than we think. And, just think of it like saying such as Spider-Man, this very famous saying, which is from his Uncle Buck, which is with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, you've heard it before.
Yeah.
And just things like that. It's like really inspired me. I was like, wow, there's something here that's inspiring this inner awakening within me, just knowing that there is some potential within us. And that's what started my journey. And I was really drawn to the comics that had characters that were almost like cosmic level beings, because they could alter reality, they could master their mind, they had incredible discipline, they could change matter. Those are the characters that really struck a chord with me. So I knew from that point there was something within me that wanted me to connect to that identity or that idea. And so then from that, I was really obsessed with perfecting my being in some way. So I started martial arts at 9 years old. And, my mum didn't take me. I just went, with a friend. We just went to a karate dojo and just started training. And I had an aptitude for it. I got my black belt within 2.5 years, which is quite unprecedented in karate. It normally takes at least 3.5 years. And so that started my journey in discipline and focus. It started my journey in becoming the best version of myself. So it was comics first that introduced me into the idea, and then moving into martial arts, which introduced me to the discipline. And then from there, I was like, okay, what else is there? And funny story, when I was maybe 14, I used to be a rapper. And
what?
Yeah.
You never. Yeah, I wasn't ready for that, Coach.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that before.
I know. It's not that funny.
Listen, audience, if you know Coach Ward, this is the most disciplined man I have ever met in my life. I mean, down to the way he eats, the way he dresses, the way he speaks. I mean, if I ever say I can't or any word that is, limiting, he automatically flags me. I'm surprised he doesn't have a stick right now where he just beats me for anything, for any way that I'm off. But to hear that you're a rapper is awesome. It's just one of the many facets that tell us more about that.
Yeah. So
do you coach people how to rap?
Yeah, it's
because
just
I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, it's just back in the day, I was just back in the days of Public Enemy and Eminem and Scott La Rock and Run DMC and all that sort of stuff. We were that was the language, right? We used that sort of language to express and to kind of connect. And so there was about 30 guys around the way, as I say, around the way that used to rap, and we all created our own groups. There were 7 groups between 30 of us, and me and a guy we were called Total Chaos. And my rap name was Mayhem to Menace.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So it's quite an aggressive sort of style. And through the rapping, we went to a recording studio to actually, put some, stuff on record and really try to pursue this. And probably within the first 2 weeks that we were at this recording studio, this strange man came up to us and he just started talking to the whole of us, a group of 30 of us. And, we were all like 14, 15. He started talking to us about Sufism. And in Sufism, it means the pure being. It's the spiritual component of Islam. So it's almost like the yogic version of Islam. And it was more about mysticism than religion. And so he basically, from that, introduced a few of us that were interested into his mentors. And so at 15 or so, I went and I sat with these masters. They were these 2 very high level Sufi. And they'd been practicing Sufism for about 12, 13 years at the time. And so we sat with them and they started to teach us everything about the body, teach us about breath work, teach us about Tai Chi and Qigong. And so for the next 3 years, we basically immersed ourselves in learning from them. They lived about 20 miles away, but we would travel, even as these teenagers, we would just travel and sit with them for weekends at a time. And just learn.
Starting at the age 14?
Yeah, just learning. Yeah, just intensively learning.
Wow.
And so we basically took our Shahada and became Muslim. Yeah, stuff you don't know. So we became Muslim.
Yeah.
And we practiced, really diligently. We didn't work. We just did this all day. And, we would pray, but not the traditional Muslim prayer of 5 times a day, we actually did 8. Because when you study Islam, there are actually optional prayers that you can do. So you've got 5 mandatory that people know about, but there are actually 3 optional prayers that you can choose to do. And so we would do 8 prayers a day, every day. And it was an incredibly spiritual time in our lives, meditating twice a day, praying 8 times a day, and then just sitting together and studying and learning. I studied Arabic so I could read and write it. I studied the Hebrew. So really went into depth, and we fasted. We did the Ramadan, the typical Ramadan fast that everybody does for 1 month of the year. We did that for 1.5 years. So we really
Wow.
went into depth, and we really went into this accelerated learning through this 3-year period.
Listen, man, what? When you told me the story, when I came to visit you in London, because I spent a week with you, a few days with you in London, and we went through, just kind of like this masterclass over those 2 days of embodiment work, meditations and shifting the energy, et cetera. And I know that you do this for elite athletes and business owners, and people at very high levels. When you were telling me your story at 14, the only thing that I can think about is like, man, at 14, I was watching porn and getting into fights. Like, like I really I couldn't relate. And, I see where I am now, and I see the journey that I went through from different addictions, from depression, anxiety, and really working myself from not feeling like I was enough and my limiting beliefs, and working myself out of that and getting to my next level. And it seems like you were just doing that your entire life.
I was always trying to, my keyword was focus. That was always my thing, focus, focus, focus. And so the martial arts, it kind of built me into this disciplined person. And so I said, if I'm going to do that with my physicality, I got to do that with my nutrition. If I got to do that with my nutrition, then I've got to do that with my spirituality. So I've had a lot of good teachers on the way. From, like I said, when I was 16, within that time I actually traveled to America, and there was a mystery school that was a part of this whole system that,
At 16?
Yeah. And so we all traveled. We hired our hotel. We stayed all in the same hotel. And then we traveled to this land in Georgia, which was on 600 acres of land. And it was dedicated towards upliftment. So it was almost like a spiritual center. And there were pyramids there, obelisks, and all these spiritual centers. And we would literally go there for maybe a month, then fly back home, and then 6 months later go back. So over about 3 years, I traveled to America 9 times and spent like 2 weeks to 4 weeks just going in, learning mastery. So we would learn lots of advanced meditative techniques for about, over this period.
I'm going to ask you a personal question. Were you ever dating during this time? Did you ever have were you ever into alcohol and drugs? I mean, during this time I was, God, what was I doing? I was going on some of my first dates because I was starting to drive. I was experimenting with drinking. I was flirting with drugs, and sex. And it didn't seem like you were into any of those things.
No, I didn't even have relations until probably like 7-8 years later. All I was obsessed with, and I didn't have a relationship. Probably my first real relationship was probably when I was 23 or so. I wasn't interested. I was only interested in dedicating myself to this craft, and I knew that in order for me to be not the best, but the best version of myself, I had to have no distractions. It was really 3 years of incredibly disciplined, focused dedication where I didn't work, I didn't date, I didn't party, I didn't smoke. To your question, I've never smoked and I've never drank. And I just dedicated myself to that for 3 years.
So fast forward now, all of that discipline that you talked about, that mastery, that discipline, that staying focused, has that formed who you started working with now as a coach? Because now you're a coach for elite entrepreneurs and high performing athletes. And so talk to me a little bit more now of where you are in the type of clients that you're working with today.
Yeah. So, and initially, to go through that just real quick, I started working with people that were more athletic. So that was my first kind of phase of this work, but more from a functional point of view, get people out of pain and then get people to eat good. So that was kind of like the first phase. And so I wasn't really working with high level leaders at that time. And then the second phase became, what we're kind of doing now, working with more wealth-minded people and people that aspire to create impact in the world. So that kind of happened more, I'd say, in the last 6-7 years. And so the type of people that we work with, they can create impact in the world. And so that's what made me want to learn and shift into that way of working with people.
If these people are so elite and high performing, what do you see most often that they're struggling with? And what are some of the common beliefs that you help them to reframe?
Yeah, so with the athletes, a lot of the time, they're limited by the laws of the universe, or the law of what a physical being can do. So oftentimes they think train hard and they'll get results. So it's still a specific mindset thing where they believe that they can only do what the body can. And so it's the same sort of concept where believe first internally and then accept externally. You see it mirrored into your external reality. So now we've transitioned to where we are now, and to your question with regards to the mindsets of the wealthy. What, as you know, most of the time they're successful but unfulfilled. There's a saying, success is getting what you want, but happiness is wanting what you get. And a lot of people are successful but not happy, truly happy or fulfilled. So where I come in and where you come in as well is just getting people to realize that it's about the experiences that we receive in life that also allows the money that we gain to really expand through the experiences. And the limiting beliefs that they have most of the time is that they believe that making money is all about how hard you work, because that's a program that's been instilled in society. If it's not hard, you're not going to be successful, or no pain, no gain. It's typical beliefs. So one of the things I want to get people to realize is that wealth is an energetic game, and it is about expanding the frequency of your field. So we know that in order for somebody who's wealthy to be wealthy but happy and sustained, it's about raising the frequency of their field so they can hold the wealth that they've accumulated. And if they don't do it that way, they can accumulate wealth, but at what cost? And the cost typically is in relationships or in their physical health. So the mindset shift is to raise the frequency.
But how do they do that? You talk about raising the frequency in wealth and some of these, some of these spiritual words, and I understand what that means to a certain point, and you've been helping me to understand that. But what does it mean for some of these men to raise their frequency? What would be a practical example of what that will look like? Yeah. And what could they see as a result of raising their frequency versus what they already have? Because, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, this guy owns a jet. This guy, owns this, business that is a multinational conglomerate, across, these different countries. This guy, he has his wife and kids. So what more frequency does he need to raise, and what does that look like for this type of person?
This is a beautiful conversation, this point here. So everything in creation vibrates on a specific frequency, and it's quite measurable. And if I say to somebody, what happens when you feel sad? And I say to them, focus on what it feels like to feel sad. They always feel this downward pressure. So that is measurable within each human being, a downward pressure. And, when people are unhappy, their posture actually mirrors their unhappiness. They round their shoulders, they drop their head. And so that is felt as a frequency that is physically affecting their body. And then you may see someone who's always joking and laughing and happy, and they typically have open shoulders and open chest. So that is also a measurable frequency, because you can see it in the posture. So we call this red light and green light posture. The way you think and your mindset is actually mirrored into your physiology or your body. So that's measurable. Even a rose, if you were to think about or smell a rose, it would make you feel in a certain way that's measurable, that it would actually make you feel happy. So that's just like a quick example of, people resonate at different frequencies. People that are often angry are in a lower frequency, and people can feel it. They call it energy vampires. And that's quite measurable. You get off the phone with somebody and you just feel tired. That's measurable because you can feel it. And then there's people.
So how do they raise it?
Yeah. So people that are joyful, you're in conversation with them and it energizes you. So that was just the gradient. So now, with the question with regards to how they raise it, one of the first things, especially for these wealthy-minded people, is to just be in a state of gratitude. And, so oftentimes, people that are grafting to make money, it's hard for them to be in gratitude because they They think that they deserve the wealth because they pushed hard to get it. They grafted more than other people. And so they're not typically in gratitude because they just think, no, this is a byproduct of the hard work. And so the first thing to do is to get to actually recognize that, no, if you're in gratitude for where you are, just being in gratitude and appreciation is already raising the frequency. That's the first thing. It's just their perception. Don't just think I'm making money through effort, so thus I should get it, because that's a negative frequency. So if we can shift them and say, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to receive such money that allows me to have freedom, just that mindset shift puts them into a higher frequency, then it's easier for them to actually put in more wealth because one, people want to be around them more, and two, they are more open in their posture and their energy, which is a receptive frequency. So that's one of the easy ways that we can get people to raise their frequency, just be in more gratitude, be nice, be thankful, be courteous. All of those are frequencies, words of frequencies. So saying something bad lowers your frequency, saying something good raises your frequency. We've seen this in things such as the hidden messages in water, where they had 2 cups of water and they put hate on 1 cup of water and love on the other. And they found that the water that had the word love in it was bright and clear, and the word that had hate on it was cloudy. So, just the way you change your state or your perception or your words raises your frequency. That's like an easy way to do it.
But so I think this is the issue that I run into sometimes, and I know a lot of my viewers run into. And it's when I'm told, this whole thing about working hard. I did work hard to get here. And a lot of it was by me. There were some parts where I relied on other people, and it did take a village. I did, it definitely took my mom. It definitely took, my community in order to help me get there. But it was me who had to put in the work. So why would I not put that as one of the number one things that is going to get me to my next level is working harder.
Yeah.
And I had to sacrifice a lot in order to get here. And I know one of the things that you talk about is you don't have to sacrifice for success. Yeah. And I'm still trying to understand that part. Like, I've sacrificed a lot to get here. I sacrificed my time. I sacrificed, some of my probably my mental health in order to get to certain levels. Yeah. I sacrifice, when I'm in the gym, I'm sacrificing, hanging out with certain people, so I don't help me to understand. And this is why I come to people like you, is to help me transition into the next level of my mindset. And by transitioning to that next level of my mindset and understanding that I don't have to sacrifice for success, that is a mentality. Yeah. And this whole thing around working hard and that being kind of like my number one claim to fame, I need to put that into the right place. Yeah. And I know a lot of times when you talked to me, you were like, it wasn't, when you get to a certain point, it's not the hard work anymore. It's what you're creating in the attraction based on who you are.
Yeah.
It's no more of accumulating. It's more of the becoming.
Yeah.
And that to me was a watershed moment, and I wanted you to shed light more on that, because I think that's a big part of what we struggle with. Yeah. Is being told that I need to think about something differently. I need to do something differently, when quite frankly, people can fuck off. Like this is how I've gotten successful.
Yeah.
So, but I'm interested in knowing your mentality about it.
Yeah. So, we've touched on this a little bit in our sessions, with burning control. And so control has gotten us to a certain point. And again, this is an identity shift, because we see everybody around us doing the same things. We know no better than what we perceive in our own reality. We see the result of our reality. But at what cost? It's always at what cost. You use the word sacrifice, and people believe that you have to sacrifice to create wealth. And that is a mindset. That is an old model. It's an old paradigm. And so that's the first thing, is just this belief that, this badge of honor, which is a very masculine, very young way of doing things. And so the goal here is obviously to shift people into this awareness that it's actually called a duality. It's also a yin and yang. It is a polarity, which basically means hard and soft, or yin and yang, or expand and contract. All of these sort of things are there for a reason. And so, yes, you can ignore that as a person and create wealth. So we're not saying you cannot create wealth through sheer effort alone and celebrate that through your own effort. What we're saying is there's a better way. And the better way is understanding that you actually don't have to create opportunities through effort. You can create opportunities through your own frequency. So, there's that saying, success is what you attract, not what you pursue. So if you are shifting your frequency, people want to be around you, and opportunities just open. And so I know this sounds quite mystical, but it's like if you see a woman who's, you know this from firsthand, a woman that's pregnant, there's an energetic frequency around her. She's raised her frequency because now she's carrying a new soul. And other people say,
Yeah.
wow, you got a glint in your eye. Are you pregnant? What are they picking up? It's a frequency they pick up because now she's holding two souls, not one. And so that's an example of raising the frequency. So people are gravitating to that energy. So when wealthy-minded people,
Yeah, and that makes sense because my wife was recently pregnant and we just had a baby, and a lot of people were commenting to her like, "There's a glow within you, something's changed."
Yeah.
So that makes sense,
Yeah.
and it seemed like her frequency automatically raised in vibration just by that, and people were attracted to her based on her state of being. I can understand that.
Yeah. And then even from an opportunity point of view, like let's just use actors as an example when it comes to frequency to give a more realistic example for the listeners. Someone, and this may sound bad, but this is absolutely true. Beauty is a frequency. It is so much easier for a woman to get a job in acting if she's attractive versus unattractive.
The pretty premium.
Yeah, exactly.
The pretty premium.
Yeah. And if someone looks physically good, their opportunities come to them easier. Oh my gosh, you should be a model. People will walk up to someone who's attractive and say, you need to be a model. So they are attracting simply because they look good. And that is a frequency. So the same thing happens in the business or the corporate or the wellness field just by raising your frequency. And another thing happens as well, which we both know. When you work on yourself, you feel better, and that feeling creates an internal frequency. And so you attract who you become, not the effort that you create. And so we've spoken about this before. It's about be, do, have. When you are fully present and being in the highest frequency and you do the work, you have, and the have is what you want to acquire. Whereas in the Western world, they say have it, push hard, then do, and then
you can have
it. Yeah,
it's like switching from you have to see you have to see it to believe it to believing it to seeing it.
Yeah.
And it's an exact model that I teach within my framework is the be do have. You have to become it in order to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you do it, that's when you have it.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying to me in the audience, if I can just kind of summarize this a little bit, is that the way that I've been going about success has been hard. And the way that I can approach life can be so much easier if I just attract it rather than feeling like I always need to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's that identity shift into the wealthy minded, the billionaire mindset, which is the whole becoming, the attracting, the building the frequency around it, raising the frequency. So if I want to raise $1 million, if I want to expand my business, if I want to improve my marriage, if I want to have a better connection with my kids, if I want to get to a place where I feel like I can be completely fulfilled, what you're saying is instead of doing what I've been doing all of these years, grinding, hustling, going to the best universities, getting the best jobs, working really hard to move into my next level, thinking into it logically. What you're saying is there's a frequency dial. And if I increase that frequency by doing some of these minor things, such as the mindset shifts or, changing the language or complete gratitude or just, they seem relatively simple. It's not, you haven't said anything that's just so complex where I'm like, okay, let me write it down and let me study it. But if I really just invest in some of those smaller things, then that would be an automatic turn of the page where it would raise my frequency to start experiencing some of those things. And I essentially didn't have to put in any effort.
Yeah.
It was just automatic.
Yeah.
It was part of the package of being at that level. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. And another saying that encapsulates all of this as well is you're waiting to change to become that person, or what if becoming that person is what makes you change? So many people that
God,
yeah,
that just hurt my head. Yeah.
It's like those people that are waiting to get fit to go to the gym. It's like go to the gym unfit so you can get fit. It's
Yeah.
people are just waiting, and that's sort of, as we know, that's why a lot of people are stuck, and a lot of it as well is identity, which we haven't touched on yet, but that's such a big thing as well as the identity. People are familiar with who they are, and so they don't think they're going to change because they haven't up until now, and that's an identity shift that they can't make because it's unfamiliar to them. So I'm going to keep doing me because that's all I know. Yeah, but there's a version of you waiting to come in that's the higher frequency, and so most people, example, people look at actors on TV, desire to be an
Mm-hmm.
actor, but don't actually think they'll ever be an actor. Well, somebody had to take a leap of faith without knowing, and then actually seeing the reality of the trust that they put in themselves to create the reality that they desire. And so it takes everybody to take that leap of faith. As is it Siddhartha Gautama said, the Buddha said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So you have to start doing the work today to become the person that you want to be tomorrow, and let go of the person that you were yesterday.
So, okay. So that's another question. Some more practical advice. I've been this person for the last 40 something years. How do I just let go of that person and then become a new person? That I understand the be, do, have, become, and then do it, because I'm going to do it because I feel like I am. That's the be, do. And then I'll automatically have it. How did the lemon tree create lemons? He became the lemon tree. It's very simple, but people overcomplicate it. But, my question is, how do you become the lemon tree? How do you become this next version? And how do you even know what that next version of you is?
Well, I mean, an easy answer is hire a coach like us to help. That's an easy answer.
Yes, that is easy.
Yeah.
You can save years of your life. But, for the people who are not ready for, to invest at that level, what are some of the things that they can do by themselves?
It's brilliant.
In their own time until they're ready.
Yeah, some of the inexpensive ways to do that is look at people online that you love. People that, and we're all attracted to people that we want to be like, or have similar traits to. So I would say to people that want to change, look at people that are where you want to get to. Like they say, don't get advice from poor people about being rich. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So model yourself on people that you aspire to and just watch how they are being, not necessarily what they're doing, but more so how they're being, how they enter a room, how they make people feel, and just watch those people, get around those people and study how they are being and start to bring that in. Now, at first, know and understand that it is going to be uncomfortable. And so most people, they like comfort. And that's what makes us as humans weak, comfort. We have the most comfortable chairs and all this sort of stuff, but that's actually what stops us, because growth is a baptism of fire, and fire itself does burn. So we're not saying pain isn't, necessary. It is, but it doesn't have to be like traumatic, fall on the ground crying pain. It just needs to be a pain of the burn of the old identity, because you're on your path to growth, have to let go of specific things, such as friends that may not be in alignment with where you're trying to go, or foods that may not be in alignment with a new version of you. So in short, like set new standards for yourself by mirroring what you see in behaviors and lifestyle habits of people that you seek to be like. Set standards, not necessarily goals, because goals typically are in the future, whereas standards are right now. So my standard right now is to be able to fit into the third hole in the belt buckle. That's my standard. That means I have a 34-inch waist, or whatever it is. That's a standard right now. So I'm going to get to gym, I'm going to eat well, and just mirror those people that you want to aspire to be like.
But how do I practically move into my next level and identify and burn the old self-image and move into the next version of myself? How can someone who's listening to this, if they're driving, if they're in the gym, or if they're at home, what can they do right now to say, okay, this is a quick thing that I can do, a practical thing that I can do as a recommended next step that is really going to show some type of shift in my life?
Yeah, what I would say to those people is, let's say you're happy or unhappy, whatever it is, you just aspire to get to the next level, whatever the question is. I would say this is, the most important thing is to get quiet and ask the question, what is my next level? And it seems really, spiritual, but it's really, what is my next level? Just sit with it And then trust me, if you do that, your soul will speak to you. You will just start writing some notes down. And to the degree that you can't write notes down, it's an opportunity for you to start practicing something that allows you to slow your mind down, whether it's just going for a slow, leisurely walk or just doing some very slow rhythmic breaths, something that allows you to actually settle your mind enough so you can get past some of the noise and then ask the question again, what's my next level? And then sit with that. And you will start to write something down, because the only point, a tree, when a tree stops growing, it dies. And so it's the same with humans. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, it's what dies within us while we live. And so it is really about listening, because so many people especially, with people in the world that may not be fulfilling their goals, they are always asking questions, but not actually sitting quiet enough to listen to the answer. But we have to be brave enough, and it takes courage, brave enough to actually listen to our internal parameters, to hear the truth of what we have not seen, so that we can actually change that, upgrade, and become the version that we've desired for.
On that note, I have one of my final questions, as we start to wrap up.
Yeah.
And this question comes out of me asking that question for myself. And I'm going to ask you that question for you, because I've sat with myself and I have asked, what are some of those things with me? How do I get to my next level, et cetera. And what I realized is I need to manifest how to deal better with unconscious stress. I didn't realize that unconsciously I was holding on to so many stressors in my life, especially being a coach and a mentor, working with people and not being able to clear that from my system over the years. That has accumulated into
density,
stress. Yeah. And, and static and, these energetic connections that have been draining me and, and been impacting and limiting my growth and development in so many different ways. And that's one of the things that you taught me. You were like, if I'm holding on to everybody else's energy, how do I expect to hold on to my own dreams? And so when I sat and listened to myself, that is one of the things that I asked. And that is something that I'm currently working through right now. So I'm going to ask you, for that self-reflection, what is one of the things that you sat with yourself and you've asked, what do I need to work on? How do I shed my old self-image to get to my new self-image? And that's that's holding me back. What is the thing that is holding me back from the next version of me?
Yeah, that's quite easy. I mean, for me, one of the things was discipline. Discipline can be seen as control. And so for me, my whole life was about discipline. And so that kind of got me stuck, because I was trying to control so many things, even with my own body, like having perfect posture and perfect alignment, to the point where it was restricting flow. And so, I went into that, and that was incredibly powerful. Like, I had physical pains in my body, but I was doing so much mastery exercises and functional training and conditioning and meditation, and the pain wouldn't go away. And I was like, geez, what's going on here? Right. And I would dive even deeper. So, right, I'm now going to do 4 hours of training every single day rather than 3, because I did 3 hours of training every single day. And then it was getting worse. And, I hit a point. And again, if you push so hard, you will eventually hit a stop point. As they say, yin becomes yang and yang becomes yin. You will eventually hit a point where you have to stop, even if you don't want to. And I think we've spoken about this, like Forrest Gump. You can run and run, but you eventually have to stop. This, things go up, but they do come down. So I hit that point of the control can only go so far. You need to fully surrender. And I was like, no, but I just need to do more. I just need to focus. And so those pains were accumulating. And then it got to a point where I had to listen to my soul and let go of some of my control. And then it went down to 2 hours of training, and the pain started to go away, and a lot more relaxation rather than control. And so that was emotional. I was crying my eyes out. And, just to add to that, saying I share with you a lot, success isn't how much you learn, it's about how much you learn to let go of.
Yes, I love when you tell me that, because I always have to because I'm always trying to accumulate more, like more and more and more, because that was my mindset of getting successful and how I got successful. Love when you say that, because it puts me back to a place of release, surrender, and elimination. And that feels so good to shed rather than continuously accumulate. I always give the example of when people want to get to their next level and they're in a hot air balloon and they want to go up. they're releasing the bags from the hot air balloon. They're not accumulating more bags and putting more things into, you know, the balloon. They're releasing things, and that's how they ascend up. So, you know, with that said, and with the conclusion that we just made on this de facto coaching call that we just had, you know, is there anything you would like to leave listeners with? Any words of encouragement or a message you feel that can be called and shared and really impactful for the wealthy minded community?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would just like to say that the first thing is that just know that you didn't come here to fit in, you came here to stand out. And we all have gifts. And it's about being brave enough, bold enough to be able to explore your potential, because there is no one here that's greater than anybody else. It's just people that are using their resources more than other people. And once you acknowledge that there is no difference and that you are a sovereign soul, you have the control over your life, and you take that back. Once you realize, because you are a sovereign soul, you can reclaim that. You can create the reality that you truly desire. All you have to do is trust in your ability to do that through the work that you do every single day to allow you to grow.
I love it. You can create the reality that you choose to desire. And as Drake said, I'm transitioning from fitting in to standing out. That's the line that he made. Yeah, in the comeback. But listen, Coach Warren, we're at time, and I just want to thank you for joining the podcast today and always leaving your words of wisdom. Is there any way that people could get in contact with you? Can you leave some of your handles or your website or anything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the easiest places is Instagram, which is Warren W. Coaching on Instagram. So that's probably the easiest place for people to communicate or connect with me.
Okay. Well, Coach Warren, thank you so much. So until the next time, stay wealthy, my friends. I'll talk to you then.